Hi, I'm Alan Trent from the Canton Tea Party Patriots, and at our monthly meeting for November 8th, 2011, we had a special speaker, Dan Agramonte. Did I get that correct?
Correct. Very
okay.
Good.
Dan is with Georgia Carry, which is in defense of the Second Amendment right to bear arms. First, I'd like to ask you, Dan, a little bit about your background, personally.
Sure. Yeah. Basically, I'm originally from Miami. I've been in Georgia now for about 10 years, and I've been shooting since I was 6 or 7. I was introduced to it by my dad. Interestingly enough, my father escaped from Cuba in 1963. He had his firearms taken away. That always gave me an appreciation of that right that we never wanted to lose sight of in this country that we are so blessed to have.
Can you tell me a little bit, tell our audience a little bit about Georgia Carry, the highlights, then we'll get into some more specific questions?
Sure. Georgia Carry is a Second Amendment grassroots organization based here in Georgia, just for Georgia. None of us get paid. We're all volunteers, and we are basically supporting a fundamental thing, which is that we believe that it is a fundamental human right to be able to protect yourself.
Let me ask the question, are you associated, affiliated with national organizations of the same type?
We're not, actually. We're exclusively a grassroots organization for Georgia. We have worked with other organizations in the past. We worked with a sister organization in Wisconsin, Wisconsin Carry, as they were able to get a concealed carry permitting scheme established in their state earlier this year. But we are exclusively for Georgia, and we only work in Georgia for Georgians and helping them defend their rights to 500,000 folks who have a carry weapon license in Georgia.
How big is your particular organization, people-wise?
Yeah, we started with 6 people about 4.5 years ago, and we're up to nearly 7,000 members statewide.
Great. That's phenomenal. That's very good. Exactly, personally, how did you exactly get interested in this cause, so to speak?
Yeah, well, actually, I originally joined the NRA back in 1984, about, well, actually over 25 years ago. And then I was in the military for 8.5 years as an Air Force officer. So not quite as active. I was moving around overseas. But when we came back to the States and my children were born and my son started asking me about shooting, because we see it as a sport. As a shooting, you know, he started getting into shooting sports at a young age, around 6. I realized that I wanted to get back and active in the cause and really just, you know, everybody has sort of their thing that they support. This is important for us.
But you obviously feel that there's a great amount for defense for your personal self by carrying on firearms. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, we've got rental properties throughout the Atlanta area. Some of them are in some pretty, what would be considered bad areas. So we're frequently, you know, doing things like picking up rent, things like that, carrying cash. So, you know, at that level, it's really important, you know, for me to feel confident that I'm going to come back home to my family. But also, you know, giving others the awareness of their rights so that they can take advantage of those rights as well is important.
I have always personally felt, when I started to hear about this years ago, that the government was kind of intimidating us with the idea of taking that right away from us. Do you feel the same way?
Well, if I ask my parents, they'll tell me they lived through it in Cuba when their rights were taken away. So I heard that from the time I was a little boy, you know, knee high. So I was sensitized to that. And, you know, at the end of the day, the British probably would have taken the arms away from the Americans if they knew what that was going to mean to their ability to hold on to power. So sometimes nobody's advocating any kind of insurrection, but the fact that the people are armed helps keep everybody in check. You know, there's an expression that an armed society is a polite society.
Well, I think they give credit to a lot of squirrel hunters during the Revolutionary War. These were typical Americans that had rifles that used to hunt every day that helped us win the Revolutionary War, even though we were understaffed, underfinanced, etc. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, a very modest rifle that was used essentially to put food on the table. That's how Brunswick stew got started many years ago. Laid the foundation, if you will, was a bulwark for the ability for this country to become free.
Do you go around the state speaking to a lot of organizations and groups? Could you tell us what you have spoken at?
We've been at a the Second Amendment casts a very, very big tent. We've been at organizations ranging from the Gay Pride Festival to what I would consider minority organizations. We've done Tea Party events, of course. We do the de rigueur, gun shows that everybody else does. But we also are involved in a lot of civic and community groups. We don't endorse any political parties, so we share that with the Tea Party.
Right.
But we do go to organizations and different political breakfasts and organizations like that. I've personally recruited at Libertarian Party events, GOP breakfasts. So it really is a broad range of places that we go to.
And I gather you find yourself being more receptive as the years go by since you've been involved in this organization. I mean, more people are willing to listen to you and invite you to speak, I would think.
No, it's really interesting. A recent survey came out that talked about that, and it's amazing. Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter. Everybody's, at least 50% in terms of supporting gun ownership. They talk about the so-called assault weapon ban that was in effect up until 2004, and it's something like 70% of Americans are against that. You don't get 70% unless you cut across some very broad demographic lines.
Well, let's end with, how about giving us some information, maybe phone number and your website, how people can get in contact with you if they're interested?
Sure. Our name is georgiacarry.org, so it's georgiacarry.org is our website. You can go there. You can find out information about our carry regulations and rules here in Georgia, the laws that you have to live by. We also have information about reciprocity with other states. We have information for folks that are just moving. And we have a forum where folks get on there, they talk about their experiences, and then of course we ask that you join our organization. It's pretty modest, $15 a year to join. That money goes to defraying legal expenses for us to make sure that our rights are not trampled on.
Well, Dan, thank you very much. You did an excellent job. We had a lot of interest in the Q&A, which is important, and wish you lots of luck.
Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Tea Partiers, another example of how a citizen decides to take up a cause and move forward to help to protect your rights. Thank you.